the sign language that Debbie was doing, right? You will be found. Passover is happening this week. It's that we're at the end of Passover. And I had a Seder last night at my house, and it's amazing how easy it is to forget that we're actually not alone. That whatever it is we're carrying in our heart, whatever it is that we are trying to navigate, that actually pretty much anybody, if you just kind of picked them out, is going through something that's resonating on the same sort of vibrational frequency. And what I love about that song is that idea, like if you look around, you will be found, right? If you look around, there's a piece in that space where perhaps we might be feeling a little lost. We're being invited to open up in a new way. We're being invited to see something maybe a little bit differently. And how do we do that? How do we open up the blinders so that we can see in a different way? And during this time of year, there's a ritual. This is also called the time of counting the Omer. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that is, but there's this understanding in Psalms where it teaches us to count our days rightly, that we may obtain a heart of wisdom. And I don't know about you, but whenever I feel lost, what I am looking for is that heart of wisdom within myself. Right? For something within myself to kind of grow and bloom and reveal itself. And it's a journey that we're being invited into. And I always keep coming back to, well, how do I support myself in this? It's one of the things we were talking about at the Seder. So there's the karpas, which is the green herbs that you dip in the salt water and you eat. And in the version of the Seder that I do, it's understood to be what supports us. The earth, the green, the growing. What is it that supports you in your journey to the wisdom of your own heart? And so every year we tell the story of Passover as if we personally have been slaves in Egypt. That's the tradition. Every year this happens, every year, because something is hooking us at any moment, yes? For me, certainly. Something is hooking us. Something is feeling like Egypt, which is Mitzrayim. Everybody say that, Mitzrayim. And what that means is a narrow, constricted place where perhaps we would translate as where our limiting ideas are about ourselves, or where we don't feel enough, or where we're not feeling freedom to actually be able to show up as our most authentic self. And so the invitation as part of this journey in Passover is, what is your Mitzrayim right now? What is it that you feel like is limiting you, is holding you back, is somehow seems to be an obstacle to your being able to show up as your most authentic, vibrant, radiant, loving, compassionate, joyous, human, divine self? So there's a place in the narrative of the Passover story where Moses says to God at the burning bush, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Who am I to break free of Mitzrayim? Who am I to actually move beyond what everyone else has sort of said is the way it's supposed to be? Who am I to do this? Has anybody in here ever felt like that? There's this thing that's calling us, and we come back to this question of like, well, Who am I to actually do this thing? I'm just little old me, is what Moses is sort of holding. And God's response is, I will be with you. I will be with you. And it's in this narrative where we get the beginnings of what our teachings hold to be sacred, which is the I am that I am. That's in the next part of this conversation that God and Moses are having. Moses says, well, what do I call you? And God says, I am that I am. And I am with you. I am with you. And how often do we forget that? That the I am that we are is always available to us. It's always available to us. And the wonderful things we can do when we remember this, Moses is able to just part the Red Sea. Anybody in here wish you could part whatever that Red Sea is in your own life right now? Right? But Moses is able to access something within himself because at this point, the Egyptians are bearing down and the Israelites are freaking out because they think they're going to die. And God says to Moses, tell the Israelites to just move on, like stop freaking out. And he says to Moses, lift up your staff and part the sea. Just do it. Stop all this stuff. Just do it. And we know that moment. Do you know that moment in yourself where you sort of get over yourself and you just do it? And Moses does it, right? But it's not Moses that's doing it. Everyone with me on this? Right? I will be with you. It's not Moses that's doing it. It is the divinity, the I am, the wholeness that we are. 100% human, 100% divine. That is how we get to show up and literally part the Red Sea. So the story then continues where they end up at what is now known as Mount Sinai. There's lots of controversy and questions about whether that actually is the real Mount Sinai. For our purposes, it doesn't really matter because we're talking about a place in consciousness. So we're talking about Mount Sinai being an elevated awareness in consciousness. And so the Israelites travel through the Red Sea, but they're not done yet. And we all know that feeling, right? We feel like we moved some seeming insurmountable obstacle. We get on the other side of it, and then we're like, oh, I still have work to do. I still have work to do. And so when the Israelites get to Mount Sinai, they're actually there for 49 days. They're camped out there for 49 days. Now, if you're used to the Charlton Heston version of this story, it seems as if Moses just goes up to that mountain one time, but that's not what actually happens. Moses goes up to that mountain, I think it's a total of almost like 9 or 10 times. He goes up for the day, he comes back down. He goes up for the day, he comes back down. He goes up and he brings people with him, and they spend the day, and he comes back down. Right? And that happens in that first week where they're just going up and down every single day, interacting with God, right? So in our understanding, that's that elevated state of awareness. And then Moses goes up and he doesn't come back for 40 days. So think about what that does, right? He's been going up and down. People have been seeing him go up. They've been seeing him come down. He goes up, he goes down, he goes up, he goes down. And then all of a sudden he goes up and he doesn't come down. And that's when people start the murmuring, right? Now, those 49 days and that 40 days that Moses is going to spend up there in Mount Sinai is the shift from purely physical liberation to spiritual liberation. So the Hebrews were able to leave Egypt physically, but in consciousness, they're still stuck back in Egypt. And have we all experienced that? Are those old patterns, those old ideas, those old stories just continue to reemerge? They continue to arise within us. And so Moses, which is our elevated state of consciousness, is off, is off. And the rest of that, so the divinity that we are, is not necessarily connected in with the humanness that we are. Have we ever experienced that? And so the humanness starts murmuring, starts worrying, starts getting anxious, starts disbelieving in the things that they already know are true because they've been experiencing them, but they're so new that they can't absolutely lean into them. And they build the false idol. They go back to something that was before. I don't know about you, but I can really relate to this. And this idea of false idols, this idea of what is it that we think is so important, that we think is such a priority, that we are forsaking the spiritual liberation that's available to us because we are still fixated on something that is grounded in this material, physical realm. And it is this 49 days that is seen as the journey, so it's not enough to just be physically free, but we also need to grow and expand and evolve in our consciousness. So in that process, we might experience chemicalization. Now, this is a technical unity term, and what it means is that our physical body has not caught up with our spiritual awareness. They're not totally in sync. So I have a new understanding. Oh, I can see Mount Sinai. But then I have this chemicalized process that happens in my body. And maybe I get sick. Maybe I get spacey. Maybe I drop things all the time. Maybe I can't focus. Maybe I build a false idol and I go back to what was. All of this is part of that alignment between our body and our spiritual awareness. And so we have to be gentle with ourselves when that's happening. We don't beat ourselves up. We acknowledge, so at this point in my journey, when I start chemicalizing, I actually get happy because I know that I'm growing. It's like, oh, it's happening. Something is shifting and it's moving through my entire being, not just an idea that I have in my head. So the real question for me is, how do you stay centered in the growth? How do you stay centered in that when your body is freaking out on you because it's like, whoa, and your old patterns and the murmurings in your own mind, and like, how do you stay centered in this idea that we're going to continue to keep moving forward in some way? And community is so important in that journey. Because again, when we feel alone in our experience, we actually are cutting ourselves off from the one power, the one presence. Because each of us, take a look at each other. Just look at each other for a minute. This is the one right here, right? We are it. I'm seeing you out there in the live stream too. So for me, it really comes down to three components: mindfulness, compassion, and perseverance. Because it's too easy sometimes to give up, right? It's like we need that perseverance. We need that ability to continue to move through something, even if it is feeling perhaps a little uncomfortable. So I want to offer to you, so now we get to the counting the Omer. So counting the Omer is this time, the 49 days between Passover and Shavuot, which is a holiday for, I'll talk about it a little bit more, but it started off as an agricultural holiday, and it is now celebrated as the day that the Torah was given to the Jewish people. right? And so there's 49 days. And within the Jewish tradition, now I didn't grow up with this, sadly. I learned about this much later in life because this is a little bit more of the esoteric, mystical Judaism rather than sort of the tradition that I was in. But the invitation is that it's a 49-day mindful practice. And through those 49 days, you're being invited to pay attention. Pay attention to your life, pay attention to your inclinations, pay attention to those default responses that are arising, paying attention to all of your reactions. Really focusing for that 49 days. And that there is a spiritual quality that you are being invited every single one of those 49 days to anchor and to explore for yourself. So the 49 days also is part of the Christian theology, right? So it is during the days of Omer that Jesus appears to Mary Magdalene, the other women, I love how they're just called the other women, Simon Peter, the two on the road to Emmaus, right? The disciples who are actually leaving and they have a conversation with Jesus and they don't even know it's him. The 12 disciples, he does that on 3 occasions at least, Thomas, the 500, James, and then again at the ascension at Bethany, right? And what in the Christian theology, what they call the ascension at Bethany is Pentecost, which means 50, because it happens on the 50th day. So this understanding of the days of Omer being a very potent time is built into the foundation of Unity's Christian theology. And so Easter to Pentecost, we can look at that too as resurrection, the physical body, to ascension, spiritual liberation. Can you feel how there's direct parallels between what in the Jewish tradition is happening and what is simultaneously also happening within the Christian theology? And it's the same length of time, right? It's on the 50th day that the Torah was given, right? It's all the same way. So originally, Passover to Shavuot was an agricultural holiday. It was the harvest would come in, and people would come and give 1 omar of grain every single day at the temple until the completion when the agricultural festival was done. And then when the temple gets destroyed, there is no place to go and physically give the grain anymore. And so a shift happens, and they move from agriculture, a celebration of agricultural ripening, to our soul opening. There's a move from the external physical understanding of the holiday to a more internal place. And then the Jewish mystics show up, right, in the 16th century, and they take this a completely next step forward. And what they are illuminating is what they call the tree of life, which might be something that you're familiar with, right? And they have 10 different attributes or aspects of the divine. Does this sound familiar to us? Right? Sounds like the 12 powers, perhaps, right? And then all 10 of these attributes, when we are able to encompass them and embody them and live as them, then we are revealing the fullness of God. Does that sound familiar? Real deep parallels between all of this. So this is just a slightly different system than what our 12 powers are, but I wanted to offer it because I think it's important that we look sideways at things, right? That we come at things from a different angle. So there are 7 of the 10 that get focused on during counting the days of Omer. So the week 1, the focus is on chesed. Everybody say it. Chesed, which is loving kindness. And then the second week, it's gevurah. And that is restraint, strength. It's a very grounded sefirot. Then week 3 is tiferet, which is harmony and balance. And week 4 is netzach, get the thing going. And that's perseverance, it's eternity, right? The endurance. Then we have chad, and that is about gratitude and humility. And yesod, which is about bonding, connection, and also about foundation, the roots of things. And then malchut, which is about majesty and divine presence. And malchut is often connected into Shekinah, which is the indwelling presence, right? The indwelling presence. So can you feel how these 7, just working with these 7, like that's a lot of beautiful work to work with, right? Working with loving kindness, working with restraint and strength, working with harmony and balance, perseverance, working with gratitude and humility, working with connection and bonding, and then working with that inner presence, right? So, of course, the Kabbalists take it the next step further because that's not complicated enough. So they move us into this. And it's actually pretty cool because there's 49 is 7 times 7. So what they did is they have all 7 across the top for each week. And then every day of the week is also one of those 7. All right? So tonight, we are stepping into day 6, and it's got the little asterisk there, right? Which is Yesod within Chesed, right? Yesod is, no, the other way around. Well, let's see. Go to the next slide, Deanne. Yesod within Chesed. Yes, that is correct. And so we're looking at bonding or connection within loving kindness. This system is so cool, right? So not just this general wash of loving kindness, but how does loving kindness actually connect? How is it about bonding? And so there's tons of counting the Omer calendars out there that have all sorts of practices that you can do. And I'm working on finishing an adaptation of one, and I will make it available to people. But these are some examples of what you would place your focus on for the day of chesed within, of yesod within chesed, which would be tonight, because everything happens at sundown, right? So the idea is that you are lighting a candle, saying the prayer, you sleep with that intention, you wake, and you inhabit it during the day. And then the next evening, again, you light the next, set the intention, sleep with it, and inhabit it during the next day. So tonight, I will explore my foundational beliefs and feelings about unconditional love. What's at the root of your idea of unconditional love? Like really at the root of your idea of unconditional love, right? Is it truly unconditional? Right? What does that mean to you? Perhaps I will allow love to connect me with those around me, seeing from love and seeing their love. And you can spend the entire day doing that as a spiritual practice. I will start building something constructive together with loved ones. This particular day, it all lined up so beautifully, is all about love within community, unconditional love within the connections, within our relationships. What does that look like? And today I'll consciously expand my circle and do something with those I would not usually work or socialize with, right? So can you feel how deepening this practice can be? And can you feel how, like everything, coming back to it year after year, your focus might be in a different place? But there's always something there for you to be able to step in and be able to explore, right? So, we get to work with what works for us, right? So there are a lot of Jewish leaderships out there which think this is way too complicated, right? And all they do is focus the week, right? They focus on loving kindness for the week, and then they focus on restraint and strength during the week. I actually love the idea of exploring How am I strong in my unconditional love? How am I, what is the restraints that I bring to unconditional love? And maybe those are useful and maybe they're not, right? So for me, there's something really deep about being able to drop in to each day and just discover another facet of what unconditional love was. But can you feel how, as Thich Nhat Hanh, I quoted him last week, it's like spiritual practice is what is going to make this world a world that works for everyone. Spiritual practice that supports our continual exploration of who we are, of what we are engaging with. It's really easy to forget that we don't know everything. It's really easy. It's easy to just be like, this is all working for me. I got this, you know? And we're not paying attention to the fact that there's something else that we can explore within ourselves. This idea of sacred community that is anchored in the idea of unconditional love, how can we as a community expand on that idea? How can we grow that even more? How can we be centered within ourselves so that when new people come in the door, that it's clear as day who we are to them? That there's no muddiness, there's no murkiness, right? That our evolving journey is something that we can anchor for everybody. Mindfulness, compassion, and perseverance. Can you feel how these three things, when we bring them together, provide us with the support system to be able to stick with a 49-day spiritual mind practice? To be able to say yes to, I'm going to light a candle every night for 49 days, and I'm going to focus on something that has to do with loving kindness and strength and connection and humility. What would a week spent anchored in gratitude and humility look like? I mean, think of what's like, how much bigger you are capable of becoming in the world, of understanding something about yourself. Because this is what we often feel like, right? That we're out there walking on our own in the desert. But the truth is that if we are willing to look within and to look without, that we will be found. I love that. Everybody do that, found, right? And it just sort of like, it feels like I'm going to pluck you out of that dark, empty place that you are, and I'm going to bring you right here into my heart, right? Right here. And you get to do that for yourself. And when you do that for yourself, you also get to do that for other people. And there is something in that give and take that is just, I believe, essential, so essential to this spiritual journey that we are all on. My final thought is, in the Passover story, Pharaoh continually hardens his heart. Like, the things happen and he says, okay, I'm going to let the Israelites go. And then his heart hardens again. And he says, actually, no. And then he says, okay, I'm going to let them go. No. Over and over and over and over again, 9 times, Pharaoh's heart hardens. Where is your heart hardened? Where are you not saying yes to step into something until the pain becomes so great? It takes the death of his child to break open Pharaoh's heart in a way where it doesn't harden again. I don't believe that we have to wait and get to that point of absolute pain before we get to pivot and make another choice. But we need to be stepping into a practice that helps us see, where am I hardened? Where am I calcified? Where am I so stuck in what I think something is that I am completely missed that there is a whole other avenue of possibility available to me. So let's take this into our time of meditation. This idea of yesod within yesod within chesed. This idea of connection within loving kindness. Just invite you to feel into your heart space. Feel into any of those places that are hardened or calcified. Where have you decided? And not the I am deciding, but the human part of you decided something. Can you bring the power and the presence of loving kindness to yourself first and foremost? Can you allow that place, that space that is unconditional love to just make itself known? Whatever that looks like or feels like within you. And just to vision the softening. And then into that space, just invite the awareness of connection. Invite the awareness of the foundation of loving kindness. That is the root of all that we are. Just allowing yourself to touch the deepest awareness of the love that is your true nature and your true name. And then I'm just going to invite you to call into your awareness whoever wants to show up. People you love, this community, maybe people you're not so sure that you love. Just allowing whoever wants to show up into this field of loving kindness that is rooted and grounded in that eternal, infinite source. So you don't have to manufacture anything. Softening the heart is just allowing that to freely be. And just feel how you can share and connect with that love with others. And so we'll just rest here for a few minutes as we just bathe ourselves and bathe the world and each other with loving kindness. And how good it is to center ourselves in this place that is love and harmony. This place, this space that is God love. Right here, right now. So just blessing our journey into a greater awareness of loving kindness, blessing our journey into a greater willingness to connect and share through this loving kindness. And seeing and knowing that in that yes, in that willingness, even if we don't know what it looks like, that the way is made for us moment by moment, step by step. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.